right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our last Child and Adolescent Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences Grand Rounds for this academic year. I wanted to give a huge shout out to our fearless leader, Dr. Barbara Stewart, and also co-chair Sean May, who aren't here today, but they have been very instrumental in this series. Our next academic year will start on Wednesday, September 14th. So be on the lookout for more information about the speakers for the upcoming year. Just a reminder to receive credit for any lectures this year, make sure that you sign in for those. And if you have any questions about letters or credits or attendance, please reach out to Sam Ibona. And without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker and guest discussant here today. So Dr. Jessica Uno was born in Berkeley and grew up in Walnut Creek here in California. She attended Stanford University for college, receiving her bachelor's degree in human biology and master's degree in Latin American studies. She completed medical school at the Keck School of Medicine of USC in Los Angeles, before pursuing her psychiatry residency at Kauai Delta Healthcare District in Central California. She returned to the Bay Area for her fellowship in child and adolescent psychiatry at UCSF and has particularly enjoyed working with young people with ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, and obsessive compulsive disorder. She is interested in the intersection of digital applications with healthcare, and she volunteers as an ad hoc reviewer for the Journal of Technology in Behavioral Science. In her free time, she is a gamer, a window gardener, a horror and science fiction enthusiast, and a pet parent to a cat and a chinchilla. And our discussant, Dr. Thomas Tarshis, is the founder of the Bay Area Clinical Associates, BACA, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Clinic in Berkeley and San Jose. He obtained his medical degree at Wayne State University School of Medicine, his MPH at the University of Michigan, completed his residency in psychiatry at Maricopa Medical Center, and his child and adolescent psychiatry fellowship at Stanford. Tom has a previous career in computer science, and his childhood in the late 80s included Rubik's Cubes competitions, slight nefarious computer hacking behavior, and more than a slight obsession with computer gaming that has persisted to this day. Tom sees technology as an innovative solution to many problems in medicine, and his game tag is Tarmaniac, and he is looking forward to playing the new Elden Ring game. So if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. Without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Uno.
Thanks, Lauren, for that introduction. Let me just get my screen set up real quick. All right, can everyone see my slides? Great. All right, well, let's get started. I have a lot to cover today. This topic, any one portion of this talk could probably be its own talk, but I'm going to do my best to give a broad overview of video games and their applications in mental health. All right, these are my objectives, but really the reason I want to talk about video games today is, one, they're a really big part of my life. I love video games, full disclosure. And you know what? They're a really big part of our patients' lives. And I think it's important that we have some understanding of what is now a very pervasive technology. So why video games? Besides what I just said, there are 227 million gamers in the United States as of 2021. 76% of youth under the age of 18 play video games, and the number of gamers, or video gamers, has increased, to 90%, has increased over the pandemic, with 90% saying they'll continue playing after the pandemic. Video gaming is now considered a social activity. 77% of gamers play with other people. And for our field, 74% of parents play with their kids as a family activity. People have a lot of different reasons for playing video games. First and foremost, they're fun, they're engaging and entertaining. They also can be helpful for stress relief, distraction, and escaping. They also create accessible experiences for people with different abilities. The worlds of video games are now very immersive, very enveloping, and can really make people feel like they're in a whole different place. And they bring together people of different backgrounds with the social contact that I mentioned earlier. And they provide exposure to new ideas. Some argue now that video games are a new form of literature, with a lot of the same creative minds that work on television, movies, and other storytelling formats working in the video game industry. And finally, they can be used as a therapeutic tool. So let me just comment on my title of my talk, Let's Play Therapy. So the term let's play is, it references when someone is live streaming a video of themselves playing a video game while giving commentary of their experience over it. These are two of my favorite Let's Players, Markiplier and Jacksepticeye. And Let's Play video streams have made it possible for someone to actually, quote unquote, play video games for a living. I think that it also is relevant to the experience of our clients who are playing video games, and really gives kind of credence to how everyone's individual experiences are different. And it's actually even more engaging to talk about these experiences rather than just experiencing them alone. Now, I know probably on some of your minds may be past arguments that video games can be deleterious in different ways. And I ask that, as with all technology, we remember that there are both advantages and disadvantages to a technology. Today, I plan to focus on the potential benefits of this technology, and I hope to give everyone a balanced view of this very ubiquitous technology. So, case in point, one of my favorite video games and one of the best-selling series of all time is called Persona, and it's actually a game based on Jungian psychology. So you run around, you're a teenager and you're running around exploring the collective unconscious, and you're meeting and interacting with different archetypes of society in the mind. You're fighting monsters that represent shadows of the personality, the aspects of ourselves that we try to repress or deny. And if you overcome the shadows, you earn a persona. Don't know why this, oh shoot. A persona, which is the mask of personality that people can use to then navigate daily life, and also to fight other shadows and bosses in the game, all in the pursuit of the unified individual or individuation, marrying the both desirable and undesirable parts of our personality. So great game, highly recommend. So let's start off talking about the types of video games. First off, it's important to remember that not all video games are created equal, and not all video games are the same. There are many different genres of video games. They're not all first-person shooters like Halo, but there's also puzzle games like Tetris. There's sandbox games, which we'll talk about more later, like Minecraft, racing games like Mario Kart, and rhythm games like Guitar Hero. And this graph is from a paper that I think really encapsulates that video games in different contexts can be used for different purposes. They can range from more simple to complex, more social to less social experiences. And I argue that when thinking about video games in a therapeutic context, with moderation and thoughtfulness, they really can be applied for pro-social and pro-wellness goals. All right, so there are a couple terms I want to clarify. Commercial games versus serious games. So commercial games is a category of video game referring to the ones that are generally marketed to the public. You can go easily to Best Buy or Target or Amazon and buy these video games off the shelf. And the commercial games are generally designed for entertainment, first and foremost. And these games play on the more popular consoles like a computer or a PlayStation or Nintendo. They definitely can overlap with the other category I'll talk about, but they primarily are intended for fun. Then there's serious games, which I think is actually not like a great title because it's an oxymoron, serious and game. They're oxymorons. I think a better way to refer to this category would be like educational games or bespoke games, which refers to games that are designed for a specific purpose besides just fun, and targeting a specific subgroup. And they're generally not available to the public in general retail. And of these bespoke games, there are the games for health. So custom-made video games specifically designed for health interventions. So I will reference games for health throughout the rest of this talk, but here I'll give kind of an example of some of these, quote, commercial versus serious games, if that might help to drive home the definitions. So the commercial games are going to be the games that like Mario Kart, Minecraft, Pokemon, Candy Crush, that again are very easy to get. They're designed for the general public to consume, as opposed to the serious games or the educational games or games for health. Today, we'll talk about one of these games for health, EndeavorRx. These are a few titles of some other games that were specifically designed for mental health and neurologic health purposes. Then there's also the games for education. I'm sure most of you are at least familiar with the Oregon Trail, probably one of the first computer games most of us have played. Then there's games like Math Blaster, the Magic School Bus, and then Carmen Sandiego. All games that were designed to promote educational purposes and also are really fun. You know, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? There she is. All right, now moving on to games for health. So games for health are a growing industry that have been extensively researched in the literature. There's still a lot more studying to be done, but so far they're shown to be helpful and improve attention and focus, processing speed in various neuropsychiatric conditions, neuropsychiatric symptoms like apathy in older adults, balance and movement in movement disorders like Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and even for non-pharmacologic pain reduction in both kids and adults. In this photo here is Dr. Brennan Spiegel down in Los Angeles at Cedars-Sinai, whose lab is pioneering virtual reality for pain reduction in patients. Oh, and some games can even be used to detect early signs of neurologic disease. There's one game that has been played by, I think, over 20,000 people, and this game has provided new information about some of the early signs of major neurocognitive disease, formerly known as dementia, in terms of how it impacts spatial abilities and mapping abilities. So in this subset is something that we'll call the prescription video game. So this is actually something that is pioneered by UCSF's very own Dr. Adam Gasley, a neurologist, and his different labs. Dr. Gasley, who's faculty here, was kind enough to let me interview him for this talk, and shared with me a bit about the story of the first prescription video game, which recently was FDA approved in 2020. This has been a long work in progress. It's taken about 10 years from conception of the idea up until it received FDA approval. But it is, I think, the beginning of a really exciting field and opportunity for applying technology and video games to mental health and psychiatric health. So here's a little trailer of their product, EndeavorRx, which is intended for treating attentive symptoms in ADHD. Oh, let's see.
Imagine a medicine made up of pixels and play. Created with cognitive science and proven in clinical studies. A video game that invites your child to discover new worlds, build their universe, capture mystic creatures.
All right. So Endeavor RX, it is a video game that is available via tablet or mobile device, Android or Apple. In first glance, it looks like something similar to like Mario Kart. So one of my big questions for Dr. Gazzoli was what makes this game different from, say, a commercial game like Mario Kart? And the main difference is that it uses a top-down plasticity-induced mechanism, which is, I think, kind of a very fancy way to say the brain's way of learning and promoting neuroplasticity through learning and training. And it's called a closed loop system. So closed loop system basically means that while someone's playing this game, the game is actually recording various aspects of their performance and in real time feeding that information back to the game. The game then adjusts and adapts to the player's progress and performance in order to make the game challenging enough to encourage them to extend their ability. And as the player progresses, they can only progress once they've gotten better at the task. And so this is what's called a closed loop between cognitive ability and the game. It really personalizes the game to the individual player's abilities over time. So this game is considered digital therapeutics. It is available through an online pharmacy that gives a digital prescription for one dose, which is 30 minutes of gameplay a day for 5 days a week for 1 month. You get like a activation code to then use in the App Store to activate the game. This game has been shown in multiple clinical studies to lead to sustained improvements in measures of attention, as measured by various ADHD symptom scales, the TOVA, and before and after EEG measurements. It has minimal side effects, which in ADHD treatment is a really big deal. The main side effects that were observed were headache and maybe frustration with some of the gameplay, since the game always tries to stay just a little bit ahead of the player. It's FDA approved again for 8 to 12-year-olds, but this technology, the closed loop system, is now being explored for addressing various other symptoms in different neuropsychiatric conditions. Okay, I don't know why I have okay. Barriers. So some challenges in implementing a video game prescription, in getting access to it for the greater population that Dr. Gazzoli shared with me, are going to be cost and insurance reimbursement. So right now, insurance companies are not super inclined to cover the cost of a video game prescription. This is the first of its kind, so it will take some time. Currently, it costs, I think, about $99 for 3-month access for this prescription out of pocket. And then because it's a digital and tech-based intervention, there's challenges around tech support, or what Dr. Gazzoli referred to as a treatment requiring high touch. So you need to have a tech support desk. You need to figure out operating system compatibilities, technical failures, and then also reaching prescribers and letting them know about this intervention and how to prescribe it. There was actually a mother who approached our clinic a few months ago asking about this intervention, and most of us didn't know anything about it, which was a little embarrassing since we're UCSF and it's apparently from here. So that's another challenge. And then finally, there may be an engagement dependent factor in terms of how much benefit a player would gain from this game. So like, if they don't like it, if they don't find it fun, they're probably not going to get as much benefit as a kid who's really into this game. Yeah, so I think the tech and help desk side is, when I looked at the App Store reviews for the game, they all were complaining about the tech support. So definitely a lot of different challenges that the company will be working on in the near future. All right, so moving on from games for health, we talk about commercial games. Just to review, the commercial games are the ones that are generally available to the public without prescription or a specific health indication. So I want to talk briefly about some of the emotional benefits of commercial games. So first of all, video games, they inherently cultivate a persistent, optimistic, motivational style. They, by definition, you know, when you play a video game, if you're running your Super Mario across the screen and he falls off of a ledge, you don't just give up. The point of the game is to start over and try again and try to figure out a different strategy to beat that level. That's why I have this little poster here that says gamers don't die, they respawn. Respawning references when your character dies, it's okay. He just reappears again and you can try again. Video games really put a lot of motivation behind returning to a task in order to win or succeed. And I think this is something that is very relevant to mental health. Video games can promote mood regulation, decreasing anxiety and depression, promoting positive emotions like joy, accomplishment, or relaxation. They're also a safe way for expression, both for expressing negative emotions like frustration, and also creative expression, such as games, I think any number of the different sim games where you can build and design and shape your environment. Same with things like games like Minecraft, or I heard of a new game, or I think it's an older game called Kerbal Space Program, where the user or the player is really engaged in creating something of their own. Fun little side story, my partner, who's now an industrial designer, told me that his first exposure to doing 3D design was in a video game, and that was one of the things that inspired him to pursue design. So video games really represent modern play therapy. Oops, sorry. Instead of using, say, blocks or dolls or Legos to engage with a child and help them tell their story, you can do that with video games. I want to really highlight this resource that I think was fantastic, the Let's Play Therapy Institute. I think they're based out of Arizona. And there are two accomplished play therapists that provide both free and paid trainings on how to use different video games in a therapeutic context, including for both individual therapy, working with neurodivergent individuals, and how to use it in telehealth contexts. And in both their talk and from things I've learned from Dr. Tarshis, who will speak later, video games, because they're fun, kids are more likely to come to therapy sessions and comply with treatment. They're a great way to build rapport between you and the patient. And in certain video games, you can use it to model different situations and practice responses to different challenges. There's obviously lots of room for storytelling through video games, and they can encourage social contact and practicing social skills. Again, Dr. Tarshis will speak more on that. And then identity play. In video games, you usually have an avatar of some kind, and you can try on different identities and avatars and personalities or personas to help a patient engage in some self-discovery. So some of the advantages to commercial games for therapeutic use is, one, they're widely accessible and they're generally pretty affordable. Both the console and the games themselves. There's already, because this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, a very good, robust tech support infrastructure and cross-console compatibility for these games. It's not too hard to find games that work for whatever console you already have, or if you have a tablet or a mobile device, boom, you have a console. And they're very versatile because they're not intended for any one specific therapeutic purpose. Clinicians can find different ways to kind of fit these games to an intended therapeutic purpose. One paper I read really argues that given the high burden of mental illness, along with the very difficult access that many people have to mental health services, video games or commercial games really represent a cost-effective and high compliance way to deliver mental health therapies. I'm right. So far, we can't really argue that they could replace other evidence-based treatment, but they certainly can serve as an effective complementary treatment. All right, so now we'll talk a bit about Minecraft. So Minecraft is a sandbox game. So sandbox game is a game where there aren't a lot of limitations on the character, and they're usually placed in an open world where you can roam around and adjust that world at will. This is in contrast to, say, a progression style game like Super Mario, where you're running in a straight line. You have to do the things that the game throws at you. A sandbox game instead lets the player pick the task that they want to do. I personally haven't played Minecraft yet, but my partner who has really summed it up about saying that this game is about exploration and making your own goals. There's enough structure in the game to present challenges, but also provide satisfaction when you achieve your goal. Because there is this vast world to explore, the player's imagination can really fill in the gaps, and you can build what you want and customize how you want. Minecraft now has education editions and is being used for as an educational tool. It can be played on almost any console or platform, be it tablet, phone, Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, I forget what other consoles there are. And it's highly customizable. So in play therapy, this is very important to have a world that you can really customize for your client's needs. And another cool aspect is players can explore the worlds other people have built. So here's a little trailer showing some of the gameplay of Minecraft.
Let's go to a place where everything is made of blocks, where the only limit is your imagination. Let's go wherever you want to go. Climb the tallest mountains. Venture down to the darkest caves. Build anything you want. Day or night, rain or shine. Because this is the most significant sandbox you'll ever set foot in. Build a majestic castle. Invent a new machine, or take a ride on a roller coaster. Play with friends. Build your own little community. Protect yourself with the strongest armor that you can craft. Fight off the dangers of the night. No one can tell you what you can or cannot do. With no rules to follow, this adventure, it's up to you.
All right, so I think that this video and the previous descriptions, again, they really illustrate how Minecraft really could lend itself to therapeutic purposes. Here's a few really impressive Minecraft worlds that other users have built. And these are really great settings to apply certain strategies like teaching mindfulness, exercise, 5 sensory exercises. And it's really easy to find an environment that fits your patient's preferences. One thing to always remember, though, when trying to use video games for therapy of any kind is that you should always talk about how the skills that you may model or practice in the video game can translate into the real world offline. How do we cope with challenges in the real world? How do we create tools for success? The title of Minecraft refers to the kind of the basic tenet of the game, where you mine resources and then you craft new tools and resources. So really talking about what are the recipes for success in our relationships and lives in the real world. Video games do not replace these real world relationships and activities, but they really can provide a space to practice how we navigate that world and talk about it. So There are a lot of actually really good models online for how to apply Minecraft for individual CBT and play therapy. As I mentioned, it's a great way to practice and learn mindfulness exercises, relaxation exercises, practice problem solving and frustration management, teaching CBT skills, lots of ways to use little allegories from the game to teach a CBT skill, like in this little teacher guide right here. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of ways to do identity play and try out different avatars and personalities for these skills. Okay, moving on. I now get to put on my Pokemon hat and talk about the game that I know best, Pokemon Go. So I think probably in 2016, many of you may have been aware of this craze that swept the nation called Pokemon Go, based on the other very popular Nintendo game Pokemon. Pokemon Go is a location-based augmented reality game. So what that means is it uses your real-time location in order to play, and augmented reality refers to how the game overlays virtual objects onto the real environment around you as captured by your phone. It's highly immersive because of this, and it's probably one of the best examples of how a location-based AR, augmented reality game, has been used to get people moving and get people outside, because you have to move and play and walk around the outdoors in order to play. So I'm gonna just play a little. This would actually be a good example of a let's play where I am showing my gaming experience and commenting over it. So this is the overworld map, which integrates with Google Maps. So it's actually an accurate representation of my neighborhood. You can see there's little Pokemon popping up on the screen. You have to walk up to real landmarks in order to get items and rewards and fight Pokemon. And once you walk up to a Pokemon to catch them, that's when the AR, augmented reality function kicks in. It makes it look like there's actually a Pokemon in this apartment complex that I now have to capture. It's a really, you'll have noticed my photos throughout the talk of Pokemon in different locations, and those are all photos I've taken through the augmented reality in Pokemon Go during my travels and around the world in the last 6 years. It gives a lot of incentives to exercise. The further you walk, the more rewards you get. There's actually little Pokemon eggs, and you have to walk a certain amount of kilometers in order to hatch the egg. The eggs that require more walking have better Pokemon inside. And then it's a cool way to kind of get to know your neighborhood, because they actually include information about the different landmarks that you visit. A lot of murals in San Francisco, for example. So it's nice to get information about the mural that I'm looking at. And it can help you, I do sometimes use it to help navigate to certain landmarks on Google Maps. And then there's the multiplayer aspect. These are all doctors who play Pokemon Go. We all have a Pokemon Go group together. And you have to team up with people in the real world in order to take on some of the bigger Pokemon bosses. So Pokemon Go, there's been at least 59 papers written about it and its applications for activity and mental health, which is wild to me, that many people have been studying this game. And one of the main things that have been found is that it can mitigate the symptoms of mild depression and anxiety through a number of mechanisms, including behavioral activation, along with increased physical activity and time outdoors, both of which have neuropsychiatric benefits, encouraging face-to-face socialization with talking to new people. It's very easy to, if you both recognize you're the two nerds on the street playing Pokemon Go, it's a lot easier to try talking to someone new, which is a really good form of exposure therapy for people who are socially anxious, or people who have other challenges with communication. So some of the research on this game is striking. during the first few months of Pokemon Go's released, one organization, or one, I think it was, I forget, I think it might have been Stanford. They did a study using fitness band info from 32,000 people and found that Pokemon Go actually increased people's physical activity for as long as they played the game by up to 25% more steps per day. And it was praised because it reaches populations that otherwise are not very physically active. A lot of other mobile fitness games and fitness apps already kind of target people that are very active. And so Pokemon Go was really successful in getting people who were previously not as active out and about and walking around. It's been shown to really increase physical activity along with improved mood and sense of well-being. One study from the London School of Economics actually found that in regions where Pokemon Go was released, there was actually a sharp decrease in the number of people Googling depression-related terms. One of the challenges with Pokemon Go is that it seems like these benefits they only last as long as you're playing the game. But during the time people are playing the game, it is very successful in addressing some of these factors. Just for a little comparison to kind of the dosing of the digital ADHD video game, it seems like the dose of a Pokemon Go would be about playing an hour a day, 7 to 10 hours a week. All right. So coming to some recommendations for providers who may want to integrate some video games into their practice. First of all, I recommend you play games yourselves. And one of the places you can start is ask your clients or your own children what games they enjoy, and really listen to what they have to say and why they like those games. Be open-minded, try to avoid dismissing video games as meaningful activities, and also avoid dismissing children and teenagers' online and game-based friendships. While video games do not replace offline friendships, the online and video game-based friendships can really be just as meaningful and real as offline ones. If and when you play video games with kids or your patients, really observe how they express themselves in the game, how they interact with others in the game. And then finally, encouraging your parents and kids to play games together if they're not already. This really helps to also improve the parent-child relationship. And I have one family that has successfully come up with a way of the child will play Minecraft for 30 minutes, then sister will play for 30 minutes, and then dad will play for 30 minutes, and they get to watch each other. And that's actually been a really fun bonding activity for them. And then before using video games in your practice, if some of them have online components, discussing potential confidentiality concerns with the patient and family ahead of time. Now, one of the really common complaints we get about video games is, but my kid are so irritable and unmotivated once they have to stop playing their game for the day. So here are a few strategies that I use, which really draw from kind of basic parent management training skills. One is keeping a consistent schedule. So designating the hour of the day where kids can expect to play video games, and really not deviating from that schedule. So having it always be school, then homework, then dinner, then chore hour, and then video game hour. And really keeping consistent routines so that kids know what to expect, and giving less opportunity for them to try to wiggle video game time into other times of the day. And then considering screen time limits. The new AAP guidelines are here on the left because of the pandemic, and acknowledging that now screen time, a lot of us spend most of our days on screens. Really considering balance for older kids, and then you can always follow some of these guidelines for kids under the age of 5. avoid blaming games for the behavioral problems. Usually when I have patients and parents talk about this challenge, the kid also has underlying conditions or challenges that may make it hard for them to switch between video game time and other activities. So treating the underlying ADHD or anxiety, or engaging in other behavior management are usually successful for then making it easier for my patients to transfer their attention from video game time to something else. Oh, yeah, so there's that point. And then really focusing on reinforcing positive desired offline behaviors and really praising when kids go ahead and move on to chore time or getting ready for bed. And then recalling that, again, video games shouldn't replace other components of daily life, like sleeping, eating, non-video game family time, homework, school, and exercise. All right, so the main takeaways from my portion of the talk are that video games are a really important experience in our patients' lives. There are many kinds of video games. They're not all first-person shooters or violent games. And then there's also a lot of, there are commercial games, and then there's the more tailored games intended for healthcare purposes. And video games can be useful for play therapy, behavioral activation, ADHD treatment, social skills training, and more. And now I will hand it over to Dr. Tarshis, who will talk a bit about using video games for social skills groups.
Jessica, awesome talk. And I'm Tom. Nice to meet everyone and see some people that I know, and how exciting to have a graduating fellow be a gamer and be interested in the use of video game as a therapeutic tool. And really, I went into child psych just to keep training and playing video games my entire life. So for people who didn't know that, but I can talk a little bit about our experience at our clinics and with our providers and what we try to do at BACA. And as Jessica mentioned, always been a gamer, and then realized in the early 2010s that we had a lot of parents who would come. About 10 or 15% of our patients are high functioning autism. And one of our recommended treatments was always social skills groups. And so we would hand that out to parents, because it was one of the things we weren't doing at BACA. But then the parents would always come back and say they couldn't get their kids to attend the groups, and they hated going, and it was such a fight. So around that time, Minecraft was new, and I thought this is the perfect opportunity to create an environment that kids love, and that can be all the modeling around different situations, that something like a social skills group where kids would go and play Monopoly with a group of other kids, still good, still a good group, but less likely to be translatable to the real world. And so that is how we came up with the idea to do a Minecraft social skills group. And then we'll talk a little bit about that experience. And we can go to the next slide, Jessica. But this is the basic syllabus that we came up with way back in 2012 and 2013. And this is the same syllabus that we use today. And Jessica mentioned this in a couple of points in her talk. And in general, people working with latency age kids and younger, if you're not doing the work with the parents, you're very unlikely to see gains from just that individual work for the kids, especially around behavior training. And we know that in our field. So we didn't want to just have a group where we brought the kids in and then played Minecraft in a virtual world. So we came up with a structure where the first 10 or 15 minutes we do in the non-computer room to talk about the skill for the day, for example, the no more whining session. Then we would go into the Minecraft room, and what we would do is we'd have a virtual world set up on our own server in the Minecraft room. It's an intensive group. It'd be usually 3 therapists in the room, so that we could walk around and see what the kids were doing on the computers, because anyone who's played virtual games, and especially Minecraft, and this is why Minecraft is perfect for social skills, the temptation to punch someone you're standing next to in the virtual world is very strong. And So first you do it with your staff to make sure they stop punching each other, and then they're ready to help supervise the kids in the room. But if you control the server in the room, if you're working on a specific skill and that skill is not going well, you can pause the entire game. It immediately gets all the kids' eyes on you, what happened to the video game, and then you can reinforce the proper behavior. So brief introduction out of the computer room, session in the computer room, and then for about the last 30 minutes of every session, the kids would get a free play time in Minecraft. And during that time, we would step out and do a parent session where we would talk to the parents about the skills the kids learned that day, give the parents the homework assignment for the next week. So the homework doesn't fall on the kids. We've just taught the skill, we've done in vivo exposure, and then the homework falls on the parents to reinforce that over the next week. And the parents that don't turn in their homework get shamed in front of the entire group. But we make it clear that this is not a drop your kid off for this group and these skills are going to get better. The expectation goes on the parents to do their part. And again, anyone working with this population on behavior skills knows that that's critical. And so we do the Minecraft in non-creative mode, which creates a lot of anxiety because you can die. You can set it up so you can keep your items now if you die, but way back in the day, you couldn't do that. So some kids would get stressed out and lose their items. But it also was great modeling for pro-social behavior where one of your peers could run over and collect your stuff, and then go put it back into your chest in the main house where all the participants would meet at the start of each session. At the graduation party, at the last session, kids could bring a USB drive. And by then, the kids had really always created an amazing Minecraft world where we start them out with just a little group house, and then it develops over the 10 weeks in the social skills session. And it's just a very fun group to do. There are other challenges around insurance reimbursement for a staff and tech heavy group. The history of being a software engineer and in hardware help run the groups and keep the server going, but there's situations like power outages and other things you have to handle on the fly. But that's our Minecraft group. We've been running for almost 10 years now. And an introduction there. What's the next slide, Jessica? Oh yeah, and there's some initial findings in the IBER Child Behavior Inventory in the pilot group, good behaviors on both, and this is just parent ratings. And of course, the kids love the group and would repeat it over and over. At different times, we've had a postgraduate group for the kids who've graduated the initial social skills group, but wanted to maintain those friendships. And so we did keep that going. And that's our Minecraft group. I can talk about a couple other, there's a couple other of gaming groups that we do at BACA. One is our Dungeons and Dragons group where Daniel Irby, and there's a national work group on therapists using Dungeons and Dragons for therapeutic purposes, and that has translated well to virtual. And so we've been doing a Dungeons and Dragons group. Just as a side comment about the intricacies with video games, we did actually try to put together a curriculum for a Fortnite group. Fortnite's a popular shooter game, and the idea was everyone who works with adolescent males knows they're less likely to engage in therapy and can be more closed off. And so we thought, let's get the most popular game for adolescent males, Fortnite group. Let's make a group for depressed kids and do it around the context of doing Fortnite gaming. And we thought for sure that we would have hundreds and hundreds of kids signing up for this group. But interestingly, we had very few people interested in this group. And the reality was, when we looked into it, parents didn't want to send their adolescent boys to a Fortnite shooter gaming group to work on their depression. So as Jessica alluded to in her talk, there is there are a lot of societal opinions about video games. It's parents who still sign kids up. And so Minecraft is can be seen more positively and pro-social via parents, but some other video games, we weren't ready for that piece. I'll pause there. Really excited to have this talk. As Jessica, again, at the beginning of her 90% of our population are using video games. So keeping a positive, reality-based, pro-social approach to how this can be helpful for our patients is the way to go. Yeah, thanks for having me, Jessica.
Yeah, thanks for that. We have, someone who's actually an expert in using the video games in therapy. Here's just a few recommended resources that I mentioned throughout the talk, including the Let's Play Therapy Institute, as well as Common Sense Media, which is a great way for parents who are concerned about graphic material in video games to figure out which video games are appropriate for which age groups. And then some information about Endeavor RX, as well as the Entertainment Software Association and the Minecraft education kits. Oh no. Oh, okay. Well, now we're at Minecraft. And here's all my references. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Unau and Tom. At this point, we have about 10 minutes for questions. So people feel free to put questions in the chat or kind of raise a hand. I see a question in the chat from Dr. Tony Yang. Thanks for a wonderful presentation. I was wondering about the use of virtual reality for treatment.
Yeah, that is a whole topic that I did not have time for, unfortunately, but it is a booming industry. There is a lot of research money going into it. As I mentioned, there is a lot of interest at Cedars-Sinai in using it for pain reduction. I also have a number of papers I was reading about using it for exposure therapy, social anxiety, with some early evidence that virtual reality can really be useful for exposure therapy, especially when someone's maybe more likely to come to the session if they know you're not really going to put a real spider in their hand, but you can instead use an augmented reality overlay in the VR to make it look like there's a spider. There's also a lot of applications being explored for PTSD. I've heard about they're making some kind of smell-o-vision sort of thing for virtual reality, where they can use it to either promote mindfulness exercises, make it smell like you're at the beach, and then your virtual reality shows you're at the beach. Or on the flip side, using it in imaginal exposure for, say, veterans, and including both sights and smells of a traumatic memory. So yeah, lots and lots of research being done in that. Save it for another talk, but definitely a great thing to start reading about.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Kristen Lacrosse in the chat. Assuming insurance eventually gets on board, who will be able to prescribe the game? I don't know if you heard anything about that, Dr. Unau, in your chat with Dr. Ghazali.
Physicians. I should actually follow up on that myself, because I am now curious about prescribing it. I think there is a brief training and orientation that prescribers must go through in order to prescribe it. Definitely we'll have to check on that afterwards on the Endeavor website.
So we have had one physician who's been able to prescribe it and actually do a prior auth and get it approved for their patient. It's an N of 1. It actually didn't work out for some of the reasons Jessica alluded to in her talk about tech support and other pieces. But one of our docs was able to get prior auth and prescribe it for I think a 10-year-old with ADHD.
Great, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jessica, for that. Any other questions? Yes, Ethan.
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much, Dr. Uno and Dr. Tarshis for this. Dr. Uno, I'm particularly curious, like what you see as next for you in this space, like in your career. Like, what's the role of games going to be in your practice? Yeah.
So I'm graduating end of this or next week, actually. I'll actually be going over to work with Tom over at Baca in Berkeley. And one of the interview questions he had for me was, if we gave you some protected passion project time, what would you do with it? And I pitched to him Pokemon Go therapy, which I have not seen at all anywhere in the literature yet. So maybe working on my own protocol to formalize a way to incorporate Pokemon Go into behavioral activation, nature walking, things like that. I'm also, I don't know if anyone's seen the new Stranger Things season, but D&D is prominent in it. And I am also curious about helping lead the D&D groups at Baca. So I'm also going to try to pick up some D&D skills. And then I suppose I should finally play Minecraft myself. But I think also just continuing to be really an advocate for, again, the balanced view of video games and educating parents about how they can, in moderation, be a really positive thing in their kids' lives.
Thank you so much, and congratulations in advance, Jessica, on your graduation. Janice, Dr. So asked in the chat, wondering about the cultural aspects, likely the gaming cuts across cultures. Any thoughts on these and working with various cultural groups that you could share?
So one example is that a lot of the video games have localization versions in different languages. I think there are interesting phenomenons in certain countries like Asia where gaming addiction is actually a really big problem. And I think, again, and I think that does cut across cultures. I think it's just like in terms of teaching about mental health and decreasing stigma across cultures, similarly with video games and how to promote healthy video game consumption. I'm not sure if there was a more specific question in there.
I think any of your thoughts about, particularly in your experiences, working with different, cultural groups, it will be wonderful. I think this is really exciting. So thanks again for the presentation. But yeah, any of the cultural aspect or, that you think of would be nice too. So thanks.
I think it's cool that video games are made by people of lots of different backgrounds, and again, provides access to a lot of experiences to people of different backgrounds. Most recently, I can think of having some patients in my Department of Public Health clinic who were maybe a bit more dependent on video games than they should have, and trying to talk with their parents who were of different backgrounds from myself about, again, what would be healthy, what may be unhealthy. And also really keeping in mind some of the cultural aspects, such as certain cultures really like the doctor to tell their kid to do something when they won't listen to the parents. So navigating those are it's kind of an ongoing challenge I'm working on. There is a residential facility. There's also like wilderness programs for video game addiction. Again, this is not part of my talk today, but it is, again, a topic worth exploring. And hopefully some of the resources I'm sharing can give people, and my long list of references will give you an idea of where to start to learn about that.
All right, thank you so much. That brings us right on the end of the hour. So thank you to everyone for attending our series this year. I really look forward to seeing you all next year, and happy early graduation to all of our fellows.